This program is brought to you by First National Bank of Botswana.
FNB, how can we help you?
Good evening and welcome to First Issues. I'm BonaLife. Thank you so much for joining us on the program. In our last episode, we spoke to consumer rights activist Richard Harriman, who expressed his excitement about the new Consumer Protection Act. He said consumers can now look forward to being protected against misleading product marketing, illegal Ponzi schemes, otherwise known as pyramid schemes, and other unfair business practices. With the new amended Act, penalties against perpetrators will be much stiffer, some of which will include fines of up to $500,000 pula, jail time, or both. Now, to alleviate these responsibilities from the Consumer Protection Unit, a merger with the competition authority is underway. It is after this merger that we will see the Competition Authority being renamed the Competition and Consumer Authority.
The Act has gone through the presidential assent. Is awaiting the commercialization by the minister. But there are subsidiary legislations that has to go hand in hand with the main act. We call them regulations. So they are at final stage. The competition regulations review and the Consumer Protection Act regulations. So we are looking at, I'll say within 3 months for the Act to have commenced. With the coming Act now, there is what we are going to call Competition and Consumer Tribunal. So we call them specialized courts. It's a tribunal like any other tribunal, but specifically looking at issues of consumers and competition. So the consumer should be certain that anything that needs to go to the tribunal will be addressed. And enforcement is not just enforcement of desist from doing this. It even has penalties. So anything that you do that you know will affect the welfare of the consumer, there are some penalties even attached to that. So the court has even those rights. So enforcement is even more reinforced.
Is it going to be different from how things were run at the government unit, or are things going to be about similar?
There are some new improvements that have come with the new or revised Consumer Protection Act. So you are going to see new provisions of the Act. The Botswana are so used to pyramids, and the Act prohibits pyramids, multiplication schemes, and also the reinforcement. You know, every time when there are changes in the industry, there are some also changes with the legislation that has to come with it. So there are some elements of the Act where there has to be any reinforcement. The fundamental one is the one to ensure that the consumers' rights are protected, is the one for enforcement through adjudication and prosecution. And there are even some jail terms attached to that. The other thing that you are going to see coming up with the new Consumer Protection Act are the issues relating to consumer groups. We know we have always been having consumer groups, but for now they are even legislated that as the Competition and Consumer Authority, there should be consumer groups financed, working with the Competition Authority and Consumer Authority to ensure that the rights of consumers are protected. So the other thing that you're going to see is that pressure group from the consumer groups that are going to be formed to ensure and assist in identifying and resolution, working with us on the consumer issues.
Okay, Matebelelo, we see all of these new improvements, if you may, to the Act, but then how is the consumer going to enjoy them after the merger? Is the process of lodging a complaint and aggravation going to be the same as it has always been, or do you have anything that is set in place that is going to be different? Kindly explain how that is going to work.
There's going to be a slight change in terms of how we handle the consumer complaints. You may be having two complaints, the one relating to competition, the other one relating to consumer issues. You're going to see a process where now when you come, it's handled under one authority. You are also going to see a situation where now it's a tribunal. You even have the right to go to the tribunal if you feel you are not you are not helped enough through your complaints for it to be resolved. But you are also going to see some changes in regards to how the new act has come up with new provisions on issues like how you display your prices, how you are not allowed to bait consumers. But when you come to the competition authority, because the process is legislated and at the same time time-bound, as well as having an overseer of a tribunal, you are going to see enforcement now even more reinforced, because the perpetrators or restrictive business practices that are out there in the market, they will definitely know that this one is legislated, is time-bound, and at the same time, we are forced as the businesses out there to be aware of the consumer rights, because as you know, you will mediate. Mediation is completely different from reinforcement through adjudication and prosecution. And definitely you are going to see us working very closely with the police.
Awesome. But then again, this is an act that has some very, very stringent measures, you know, especially for business people. How are we going to ensure that all parties involved are well aware of what the new act means for everybody, for both the consumer and business owners, business practitioners, suppliers, and the likes?
Our act empowers us to work through awareness creation, as you have said, education. It also empowers us to adjudicate. Usually what we do when we enforce the act is we have asked, or what is it that is going to be new? We are going to engage a lot with the business community and the public at large, educating them, taking them through the new legislation, taking them through their rights, for them to know what to do and where to go, setting up platforms that will enable them not necessarily to come to Gaborone or to go to Francistown, for them to be able to lodge their complaint. So we are going to engage a lot with the business community, different bodies. We are going to work very closely with other regulatory authorities. You know, we are the Competition and Consumer Authority. So if we become that, there are some regulatory authorities that we have to work with. So we are going to work very closely with other regulatory authorities as well as other law enforcement agencies. Like I've said, working closely with the police, taking customers through complaints, through training, awareness creation, and we're going to be even looking at laws and regulations that perpetrate or that can raise anti-competitive behaviors as well as affecting consumer rights. So even those acts, you are going to see us engaging with respective law agencies for them to review their act. But awareness creation, working very closely with the media at all quarters for us to educate. Even going to to schools to educate students on the rights of the consumers. You are going to see us a lot. And we are working round the clock to see, even at tertiary, how can we have competition and consumer in the curriculum. So you are going to see too many developments going ahead, but engagement with the public and with the business and the representative at large is a part of our mandate, education campaign.
What is the future of help? It's to help people find the great in themselves. The drive, the passion. Help them find their true potential. Help them stretch. Help them grow. That's why we help people help themselves, help the world, because a little help goes a long, long way. FNB, how can we help you?
Thank you so much for joining us on the program. In our last episode, we started a series on debt. In that episode, we found out that an inability to pay off debt is the major cause of a lot of vehicle repossessions, home auctions, and a failure to cope with normal day-to-day demands. Upon inspection, a lot of individuals found themselves in this predicament due to overcommitting themselves to lifestyles they can't afford. The stronghold of household debt, however, reaches far beyond just the indebted individual. According to a study published in The Conversation in 2016, unmanageable debt has been closely linked to the deterioration and ultimately disintegration of the family unit due to unbearable financial pressures from unrealistic expectations. It has been shown that people with very high household debt are more likely to say that debt stops them from taking major life decisions, such as furthering their studies or changing jobs, due to a crippling fear of the financial implications that come with such changes, even if that decision means better opportunities. Beyond those immediate financial pressures, there is evidence that over-indebtedness can cause various health issues that can lead to lower labor market participation. This domino effect means less productivity at the workplace, which then translates to lower returns and then ultimately an underperforming economy. On the show tonight, we examine the burden that debt places on society. Joining in on the conversation is BonaLife CEO Regina Sikalesele Vaka, who explains how far into society household debt reaches, why most people find it difficult to seek help, and what measures should be taken by society to rehabilitate this matter.
Debt problem is very far-reaching because if you get the statistics coming from the central bank, you'll find that a very high percentage of people are indebted and the household debt is very high. So what it means is that we're using more of other people's money than we're saving our own, because debt and savings are the opposite of each other. And what this basically means is that we really own or possess very, very little, and the financial institutions own and possess a lot of what we think is theirs because we've used it, purchasing it through debt.
How does that affect businesses, the labor market, ultimately the country's economy?
It affects the economy in the sense that it's a bubble. You know, when you are reporting or when you look at how prosperous or well-doing a nation is, you look at it in terms of what they're able to afford and the lifestyle and how they live their lives and how they spend. But in Botswana, it becomes a problem because you are spending more than you are earning. So basically, from one month to the next, a lot of people are on credit because they've spent more than they're earning and they've got debt from somewhere else. So the ideal position to be in is that people need to be able to spend within what they're earning and have some surplus that they can save. Then you can say your economy is sound because people's lifestyles are in tandem with what they are saving. But if you are sustaining a lifestyle through borrowings or through debt or through using somebody else's money, then it's creating an artificial environment which is not healthy for the economy.
Why is it that people wait to look for help, as far as you going to the bank and telling them, this is my situation, I need help here? Why do they wait until it is too late to seek help, if at all, actually?
Because debt creeps on you. Debt creeps on you. You see, debt is dictated for a lot of people by the desire to maintain a lifestyle. So you are sort of like caught in this race where you're not giving yourself ample time to think about what you are doing. So you are not really living consciously. You want something, you go out and you get money to buy it. You want the next thing, you go out and get money to buy it. Until you wake up and you are in this debt trap. But it's something that just happens gradually over time. And it's sort of, that's why it's called a trap. Because you fall into it unconsciously. And then one day you realize, but I'm in debt. And it's more than I can handle. And I don't know what to do. And that's when a lot of people try to get help. But by then it's quite late.
are there enough institutions or organizations outside of a person, an individual going to a bank and saying, this is my situation, where they can seek help, you know, debt counseling services, you know, financial management services and classes out there for people?
There isn't. You see, the whole issue here is that this is all something that's very much unconscious. Nobody consciously sits down and says, I'm going to get debt and I'm going to make sure that that debt is more than I can afford to pay back. Nobody does that. It's happening unconsciously. And that's why even with financial institutions or any other institutions that you expect to be educating people, the education isn't there because it's not planned. So it's something that is reactive and reactionary. And financial institutions and other institutions are going to be forced to educate people when it becomes a problem for them. So for as long as they are still surviving and they're making money, it's not urgent, it's not a priority for them. So we can't rely on them to be the ones to solve the problem that we're creating for ourselves.
Such a paradox, but outside of the banking institutions, is there anything that society as a whole, the individual people, communities as a whole can do, or some measures that they can adopt to rehabilitate this entire situation?
I think the thing is that us as a nation, we've got to just take a step back and say, but where are we really going? Because we are not educating our children enough in order for them to understand about money, how to use money, how to save money. And we're leaving that type of education to other people. So if we could start by developing our communities, going out into our churches and talking about finances, talking about finances with our methelo, talking about finances with our children in the family, in the setup, and take it upon ourselves to make sure that that financial education is going through, then we can start to create an impact. But currently what's happening is that we're just in a race and you're just finding yourself with the problem. So nobody's going back to say, my kids are 8 years old, I give them an allowance or pocket money, yeah, 10 pula. I need to be able to tell that child what they should do with this 10 pula. I need to be able to teach them when they're 8 years old, I want you to spend 5 and save 5, because that's how it becomes part of that child's life. So we're not doing that. And then this poor youngster goes on to university, they get the allowance at university, they know that the allowance is there to be blown. So they go into the working environment, it's the same mindset. Your salary is there to be blown. And after you've blown it, you go somewhere else and ask for additional funding, yes. So the problem is really fundamental. It starts in the home. It starts in the family. It starts in the upbringing. If we could do the right things with our children when they're young and train them, then it doesn't have to become society's problem. We don't have to be asking government to do what we should have been doing in our parenting role.
What is the future of help? It's to help people find the great in themselves. The drive, the passion. Help them find their true potential. Help them stretch. Help them grow. That's why we help people help themselves, help the world, because a little help goes a long, long way. FNB, how can we help you?
Welcome back to First Issues. Tonight on our Own Your Day, Own Your Life Productivity segment, we continue learning about the disease illusion, a term notoriously used by our resident guest, Dr. Kiran Bhagat, to explain the rising trend of non-communicable diseases. But do we have cures for these diseases? And where do we start looking for clues to unlocking potential treatments for these ailments?
Classic saying in ancient Chinese and Indian medicine is that when the diet is not good enough, the treatments that you take will not work. When the diet is good enough, the pills are not necessary. So, or Hippocrates, the Greek father of medicine, said that let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. Is what we're trying to say to people, that a lot of the conditions that they're encountering on a day-to-day basis are conditions that have arrived because of the lifestyle changes that they have made wrongfully. Now today, in this day and age, we're faced with the food industry, we're faced with the beverage industry, we're faced with very clever marketing coming from companies that are very wealthy. We're talking about the Coca-Colas, the Kellogg's, the Nando's of this world, the Kentucky Fried Chicken. All these guys have lots of money for marketing to convince our public that what they sell and what they provide is healthy. We know that there's no such thing as junk food. There's just junk and then there's food. Fast food is basically food that's going to kill you. There is no evidence at all that anything that is sold in a fast food restaurant is of any benefit to you. And yet our public are increasingly consuming these products. And they're going the same way as the North Americans and the Europeans, where we see conditions of lifestyle, which ultimately present with symptoms that a patient will believe has a specific treatment. And when you tell them that this is what you've designed in terms of the disease that presents, whether it's lack of sleep, whether it's heartburn, whether it's a bloated stomach, whether it's lack of sleep, whether it's erectile dysfunction, these are conditions that have actually you've imposed upon yourself. And we need to untangle that web. We need to tease out the conditions that the habits that they've formed on a day-to-day basis to unlock the potential of treatment to help them.
Join us again next week where we continue on the Disease Illusion, Death by Design series. We will get to understand why taking the lazy route out of every ache and pain has medically led to the demise of modern society. Until then, from me and the rest of the First Issues team, good night.
This program was brought to you by First National Bank of Botswana.
FNB, how can we help you?